Well, welcome to one and all to the What's Next for Financial Advisors, the podcast. Today's session features our dear friend, Mr. Michael Fischer, and falls under the category of This is How We Do It. For those of you who don't know what's next, we are a full service consulting firm. We focus almost exclusively in the financial services area, working with financial advisors, teams, OSJs, offices of supervisory jurisdiction, broker-dealers, you name it. Given our experience of over 80 years, there's pretty much nothing that an advisor or team of advisors could need that What's Next hasn't done previously. And well, so much. Thus endeth, Michael, the commercial. We're also joined by producers Brandon Kirst and Amy Gouldy. Welcome. Don't say a word out loud. Just sit there and look good. All right. Thanks, guys. So our topic today is the importance of the family meeting in helping to secure one's living legacy. And as I mentioned, my good friend and client, Mr. Michael Fischer, President and CEO of Client First Financial, is joining us today. This is Mike's second visit to What's Next for Financial Advisors, the podcast. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Always glad to be a guest on the show. So I'm looking forward to talking about this important topic. That's one that, most people overlook. And I think it's important that we start bringing that to the forefront so people understand how important it is and what it is that we're talking about, that family meeting.
I agree. We'll do a little background first, but I'm just going to add to that I think it's in the back of the mind of many financial advisors, but they're not sure how to go about doing it. And they're not sure, I guess, first and foremost, of what to do to try to get everybody, all the key important stakeholders, as I like to say, in the room. So we can touch on that as well. So Mike, how long we known each other now?
Oh, Bill, I'm going to say 15 years. Yep, okay. 15 years.
And when was the last time we had a conversation that we didn't laugh at each other?
I think a week ago Thursday.
I'm crushed.
I can't remember one.
Mike and I are very dear friends. For those of you who caught the last podcast with Mike on philanthropy and legacy, Mike is such a dear friend that he actually went and got ordained online and conducted our wedding. The beautiful Molly Rambo, and my wedding back on July 25th of 2015. And as I always say, he did a wonderful job, even though his hotel room had no furniture and he got no sleep the night before.
That's true. It was like camping in Narragansett, Rhode Island.
But inside.
But inside, yes.
Well, I hear they have furniture now, 9 years later. So,
all right.
Anyway, Michael, a little bit of your background real quick. We've done this before, but for folks who are tuning in,
Sure.
Listening to you first time.
Yep. So I've been in the financial services industry for 36 years. And during that time, things have changed rather dramatically in the scope of planning, products that are offered, changes in tax laws, regulations, and so forth. So it's an ever-changing business. That's what keeps me really motivated to stay in it. And in 2011 is when I established Client First Financial. It's in Fogelsville, Pennsylvania. We're a financial advisory firm that over the last, I'm going to say 8 years, have been really starting to focus on retirement planning. And in the last 2 to 3 years, really starting to look at this legacy planning as my clients have grown with me and have gotten older. It's becoming to the forefront now that we're here to try and take a closer look at what that's all about.
And we'll get there in just a minute. I'm gonna take this part, Mike, rather than ask you. I'm gonna tell the audience where the name Client First Financial came from. So 10 or 11 years ago, or 15, or 14. I'll get it right shortly. 14 years ago, as we started working together, you came up with the idea that you wanted to brand with your own DBA, your own name, your own identity, so that you could start to separate yourself even more from the herd in the financial services industry And I suggested that for a week or two, every time you met with a client, you asked them, why do you work with me? What are some of the things you like about what we do for you? And you can take it from there. That's the exercise I tasked you with. What did you come back with? What did you find?
Well, what people were saying were things like he always puts us in products that meet our needs. He answers our questions in simple ways that we can understand, and it was things like that. That as we looked at the list, it came more apparent that we put the client's best interest first, and that's how we developed the name Client First Financial. And then we took it a step further and saying, not only do we put our clients first, we put our community first. We basically put everyone ahead of us in order to achieve whatever they're trying to accomplish in both their financial and personal ways of living.
I want to point one other thing out that came from that list. It was about 3 pages, single spaced, Amy and Brandon. It wasn't, it was a lot of stuff on it. And he did a very good job of following up. One of the other things was you don't rush us. You take all the time we need and you don't rush us into things, nor do you rush us in and out of your office. And I know for a fact that that continues to this day. Now, Mike, you took an extra step in 2012.
Yes.
To demonstrate your commitment to philanthropy in the communities in which you work and live. Tell us about that.
So in 2012, I thought, how is there a way that I can give back? Now, previous to that, I have been involved in the Kutztown Lions. Those service organizations do a lot of giving back to the community through sweat equity. But I wanted to expand it and do something bigger than that. So I started the Client First Foundation, in which I've put money into this foundation. It's provided for through the Lehigh Valley Community Foundation, which is an organization in Allentown and serves the whole Lehigh Valley. And the whole idea was through having the foundation, I can give monies back to the community. But to take it a step further, I'm not permitted to thank clients. Well, I'm very limited to how I can thank clients for being.
There are compliance rules in the financial services.
Yes, absolutely. So
yeah. There just were 3 more created in just the last minute we spoke.
So as a way of giving back and saying thank you to my clients, I told them about my foundation. I said, who would you like me to give to? And through that, they would tell me, and I would then make a donation to those charities that they felt most proud of. And what we discovered over the years is there was a sense of pride that came out of me giving back to the community and the client saying, wow, he actually gave to the charity that meant the most to me. Yeah. So that was very, very gratifying. And it's to this day, it's still, when I give money to an organization, clients recognize those organizations and are constantly thanking me for supporting the causes that are most important to them.
Now, and your personal efforts to be philanthropic in the Lehigh Valley and beyond have now extended to your participation with some well-known, excellent philanthropic community. I'm going to stop saying philanthropic today.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm falling over it. Some community-based organizations. Talk about that briefly.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was told when we were giving out to all these various nonprofit organizations, as I got more involved, I started getting into that philanthropic space. And people said, it's great that you give to all these organizations, but you're really not having an impact. And if you want to have an impact, you should try and focus in one particular area. And the area I chose to go deep into were helping those in need. So how do you help those in need? Well, you could give them money, which I do, but another way was I got involved in their boards, and I currently sit on 2 nonprofit boards. I'm the president of New Bethany, which is an organization that helps those in need in primarily South Bethlehem, but really it's all of Bethlehem and the outskirts. And then the other one is Valley Youth House. I sit on their board of governors, and they help children at risk throughout eastern part of Pennsylvania. They go all the way up to Wilkes-Barre, down to Philly, and all the way out to just about Harrisburg. So those are two areas, and it's really helped me to focus and understand that particular area, and that's where I'm going to continue to focus my efforts going forward.
And it's something to behold, Mike. Your commitment to these organizations, the time you put in, and the money that you donate is pretty substantial and pretty amazing. So my compliments on that, as always.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael, the concept of legacy planning is what? And then let's get to this the importance of this family meeting. Are you doing the Kornheiser thing, going to the notes?
I'm going to the notes because I don't want to miss anything. So, the whole idea behind legacy planning is basically understanding what your principal values and beliefs are. Your legacy is how you are known and how you want to be remembered. And in order to have that, we all have it. We just haven't identified it. So understanding what your principal values and beliefs are will enable you to understand what your legacy is and going to be moving forward. All right. So that's primarily when we talk about legacy planning is how to identify those, let's call them PVVs, principal values and beliefs. And then how do we get them in alignment with our plans, both financial and personal plans, and then go to the solutions to make sure that they're in line with our plans and our principal values and beliefs so that our legacies can go fulfilled and get fulfilled.
Now we're going to go through and maybe specify a little bit in each part of that step. But once again, today is to focus primarily on the family meeting. I've heard you say before, and I agree wholeheartedly, that whether or not people realize it, every day that they're around, they are building their living legacy. Whether by intentional acts or not, they're imprinting on people how they'll be remembered. And so the concept of legacy planning helps to bring a great deal more purposefulness, intention to driving that living legacy, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny, I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and when I first told him about legacy, he automatically thought, like most people, that's for the wealthy and more affluent. And yet, as he was talking, he goes, one of the things I'd like to do is help people, and he's into real estate, help people get the home that they're looking for. And I go, okay. And he goes, and if they need help finding a mortgage broker or this, that. And I looked at him and I said, so one of your legacies is you like helping people. And he took a step back and he never gave it the thought that that's one of his principles, values, and beliefs. I like helping people. It actually what motivates him. He doesn't care about the money because he's well off, but he cares about helping people. So it's simple things like that you have to help people identify what those are. And then once you have that, Bill, then you can start focusing on, okay, what is important in my daily living, and how am I going to carry this legacy on?
So identifying principal values and beliefs is part conversation, but also doing an examination of how people live their lives currently.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Who they touch and who they impact. Cool. And once you have those in place, then the next step is to do what? Make sure that the legal documents are in place, or the financial stuff.
There you go, Bill. You're doing what
I'm not the financial advisor, Mikey. I'm not the financial advisor. I would prefer that you actually carry the conversation, please.
Okay. So what you're doing is you're focusing on a solution. And you can't do that. Most people, whether you talk to other financial professionals or see it in media, whether print or on screen, they focus on the solutions. What you need to do is you have to take a step back. And you have to, once you identify those principal values and beliefs, you have to put them in alignment with your plans. Okay, what are you trying to accomplish? And are they in alignment with those principal values and beliefs? Then once you have that, the solutions are what are supposed to go into that plan to keep everything in alignment. And they can be adjusted over time. And I can give you an example, all right? Somebody tells me, what's important to me is getting my kids educated. I'm like, okay. So in the plan, they're like, I want to set up a college fund, 529, however they want to do it. And I'm going to use this particular plan to set up my 529. Okay, very good. They set that all up. A year later, You find out they bought a Maserati. And I'm like, well, what's with the Maserati? Well, it was a spur of the moment. I go, that wasn't part of the principal values and beliefs. You're going off track. And you can sometimes pull people back because they went off track. Now, there may be a good reason that they went down that path, but most of the time it was impulsive and they're going off of what they said was most important to them. So I know I said Maserati, but pick anything, pick a motorcycle, whatever it is. They went off track instead of focusing on what was most important. They're out of alignment now.
Okay. Mine is the Porsche 911. I don't know which one, convertible, but I can't buy it, Michael. You know why?
Why is that?
It's the last car I'm ever going to own, and I'm afraid as soon as I buy it, I'm out. So I don't tempt fate. It's like I can't finish the bucket list, because if you finish the bucket list, then you're out. So anyway, all right. So identify principal values and beliefs. Check the plans. Legal documents do come into this in play at some point. Estate planning, where is that?
Well, that's all part of the solution. So if you're saying, look, I want to make sure that my family's taken care of if I'm no longer here, it's like, okay, now the solution is make sure that your documents are properly structured to do exactly what it is that you want it to do. How are they going to be disposed of? Are there heirlooms that you want to take care of? Are there certain causes you want to? There's where the documents will come into play. And I'll have more about that when it comes to the family meeting as well.
Okay. So is there anything else that we should talk about before we get to the family meeting?
Well, yeah, there is one thing. And just because you have principal values and beliefs today, they can change. All right. Life is full of moments that can automatically make you change course. It could be something tragic that has come across your life that has altered your way of thinking. It could be
it could be a new granddaughter.
I was just going to say it could be an addition to the family that maybe has special needs. That all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to make sure that that child is taken care of for the rest of their lives. So it's always changing, and that's okay. It's always good to go through the exercise when you see a change to say, okay, what is important to me now that maybe wasn't important to me 2-3 years ago?
Okay. And that's a good, and by the way, Brandon, maybe we'll go back and pull up a picture and insert it somewhere in here of that new granddaughter. She's not that new anymore. She'll be 2 years old in July. But maybe we'll do that, spice up the podcast a little bit. But anyway, so that's another reason it's important that you take the approach you do, which is you do a lot of regular check-ins, review meetings with clients. I mean, you hold a lot of them. You hold multiple review appointments with the same household, same clients in the course of a year. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's another reason why we put the client first. One of the things that we talk about whenever you engage with our firm is, how often would you like to review? It's not me telling them this is how often we're going to do it. It's how often would you like to do it? And sometimes, but for the most part, it's every 6 months or once a year. I do have others who want to meet more frequently than that, but they're few and far between. But what we do at those meetings is questions I ask. Not only do we go over all the investments and insurances and plans they have with me, I often ask, with notes that I've taken at the last meeting, tell me about your family, tell me about your health, tell me about what's been going on since I last saw you. It's amazing when I bring those things up at the following meeting. It's like, wow, you remember that? Because it's very important to not only for me to know that, I want them to know, like, yeah, it is important because your principal values and beliefs could have changed just because something else came up. Who knows what that is?
Understood. So you are different. You're exceptional. You go above and beyond what most folks do in this business. But I think advisors out there will say, well, okay, I do that. I do a plan. I help them with products and services, and I put it in place, and I review it every once in a while. Obviously, you go deeper. That's one of the things, and you do it more regularly. But what you're doing now is something, once again, that I mentioned early on that advisors think about, but don't know how to position and don't know how to deliver. And that's, you're moving to delivering family meetings to key stakeholders. What's that all about? Let's dive into it.
Okay, so how it all came about. Let's give a little bit of the history. I've been very fortunate over the years to have clients who I've grown with. We started with very little, and now their assets and their estates have grown rather considerably. It was never our intention to have all that disappear because plans weren't put into place properly to settle those things. So what I've seen, and unfortunately I've seen too much of this. I've seen families break apart over petty little things about who gets the grandfather clock, for example, and we see family traditions just being wiped out because of this breakup of a family. The other thing is because things weren't properly communicated. Estates are shrinking because assets are being disposed of improperly, which is causing more taxes. And the family's dream or mom and dad's dream of passing on things is going unfulfilled. So the whole idea behind the family meeting is, well, let me take a step back. The reason that is happening is because people aren't identifying their principal values and beliefs, and secondly, they're not communicating them. So they, saying that we have everything written down in the gun safe in the basement, that's all fine and dandy. But if no one ever knows about it, then it really, it doesn't work. And there's two recent examples of this. The first one was Prince. Okay, when Prince passed away, he didn't have a will. He had several half brothers and sisters all of a sudden going after his estate. Okay. And he also found out, well, not he, the estate found out that he had a child who was incarcerated, who said he was entitled to the whole estate. Took years to get it settled. And who got made out? Bankers and lawyers made out, and the families basically got nothing. And the other one was Florence Joyner Kersey, the Olympic athlete, FloJo. Great athlete, good business person, had a will. Too bad she didn't tell anyone where it was. Okay. Family took years, and it just split them all up. And everyone's kind of bitter because of that. So here you had one who didn't have anything. Here you had another one who did have something. And it was never communicated. So all was lost. And those are just two examples, but I've seen it on a much lower scale locally, and it's not pretty.
Now, Amy, Brandon and Mike have been here to the home office studios in beautiful Narragansett, Rhode Island, but you've not, so you wouldn't know that we do have an antique safe in the foyer. And the only thing we have locked in it is the combination, unfortunately. So Michael, when we talk about key stakeholders, it's not just necessarily family members in that family meeting. Is that fair?
Absolutely. It could be a cause that you were very much involved with while you were alive. It could be just a key person in your life who has been very influential for one reason or another. So it's not always family. Could it be an attorney? Sure. Could it be an accountant? Sure. But could it also be the president of an organization that you supported? Absolutely. So key stakeholders is broad because it could be a lot of different people.
But most people think of it's just the kids, the relatives. So
that's right.
And I would think that the more, not the merrier, but the more of those types of people, the lawyer who's going to handle the estate and the banker and you, of course, I think the more that are in there and coordinated, I think the smoother things would go upon the passing of one of those top family members.
Absolutely. But there has to be a coordination because a lot of times the lawyer doesn't know who the kids are, or the accountant doesn't know who the lawyer is, or the financial, everyone's kind of, it's a puzzle that hasn't been put together. So that's the other thing that's important about the family meeting.
Now, one of the things I would hear and in the past and probably would still hear from an advisor is, well, mom and dad don't want the kids to know what they have. How do you handle that? Or first of all, it's probably the case in some cases. How do you handle it with mom and dad? And then how do you get them to get the kids involved?
Well, that's becoming less and less. That's actually a generation before my client's generation. It was my client's parents.
It's my
And one of the
generation.
things that I have noticed is, my mom or my dad, they did things that way, and it was a big mess. And we don't want to have this same issues that my parents put us through. So that's becoming less and less, Bill. But in a way, um, when we have our meetings, we try to bring that up in a way that makes it less threatening, if I can use that word. It's like, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you here is something that would make it a lot easier for your estate to be settled, and that's being more and more accepted, and more people are willing to take a look at that, and unlike years ago.
So first and foremost, it's about making the offer to hold that type of meeting and explaining the benefits. So make it easier for mom and dad or whoever it is, the client A, to visualize the benefits of that. And obviously, if they're on board, they can provide some leverage to get the important people into the room, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's one of the things that we're doing at Client First. We're going to start really pushing and facilitating that family meeting to help get the parties involved. As many as want to participate, we're going to try and get as many as near as we can to kind of lay things out in a clear, concise way that so everyone's on the same page to make it easy.
Now, I would think with that many people and some of the types you mentioned, you've got some type A personalities in the room. So it's obviously important to have an agreed upon agenda ahead of time and make sure everybody gets a chance to talk, but not talking over each other. And everybody probably should be doing more listening than talking.
Yes, and it's funny. I've also said this to my clients. I go, "You are the king and queen of the court. What you say is going to go. So anyone who squabbles, mom or dad or both, can just put their foot down and say, 'This is the way it's going to be.'" So I mean, it's having that meeting, maybe in a neutral site like the Client First office, that would allow them to do that rather than being at the house where they're all going to wander off in their own little directions. So we're focused in that particular topic.
And you have a beautiful office in the barn. Um, in Fogelsville, you could have that meeting and you could have people sitting on the Bill Rambo Memorial couch in the
We
background.
could.
And we'll and Brandon, you know that story. Mike and I went furniture shopping together 15 years
That's how
ago.
close we are.
That's how close we are. And that couch for the meetings that was my office, that couch. So I don't mind lending my good offices, Michael,
Right
to
there.
people. Yep, to people so that you can help them get their plans coordinated with the key stakeholders, with the family members, so that things go smooth, so that the parents, the client A's living legacy continues. They can continue to impact the communities they want to impact, the causes they want to impact, that they can more meaningfully impact family members. It's an important concept. Are there any particular things that you say in that meeting that you'd share?
So when we have these meetings, they're broken down into three parts. The first part is laying out the ethical will. Now, what is the ethical will? This is something that I learned about several months ago, and it's basically saying I'm going to explain what my principal values and beliefs are. Now, there's several types of statements that you can make. I'll give you some examples. I'm going to refer to my notes. Okay.
Go ahead, Kornheiser.
I am most grateful for telling people what you're most grateful for. I'd like to see your inheritance go towards. And finally, the most important tradition that I want to see continue. So things like that's part one, that ethical will that a lot of people think about and they assume is going to happen, but telling folks this is what we or I would like to have happen are two different things. So that's basically explaining what those values, principal values and beliefs are. Step two is the one that everyone's going to think about. It's like, okay, what's the role of each person involved here? family members and key stakeholders. All right, you're the executor of my will. Here's what that's going to involve. Here, you're the POA. Here are your responsibilities.
POA, power of attorney.
Power of attorney, excuse me. Thank you. Um, Here, my final arrangements. You're in charge of that.
Oh
Trustee,
yeah, TV guide in my left hand and the TV remote in my right. That's what I
you know
have
what?
in
As
mind.
long as they know where to put that stuff, you know what? I had one family. The guy loved playing cards. Deck of cards right there in his jacket pocket. It means little things like that make you laugh, but you know. And then business. I have a business. You are going to be taking over the business, explaining that and saying, and here's how that's going to work. So once you have that part all laid out, that's all very important. At least people know what they're supposed to do versus finding out what they have to do after it's already, the event has already happened. Then the last one is laying out the rules of how this legacy, my estate and legacy are going to be, disposed of.
Yeah.
Okay. Timetables for like when are taxes going to be paid? When are heirlooms going to be passed on? Cash disbursements, businesses being transferred. But the other one is how about the future legacy moments? Family and public events and gatherings. That's that part of that tradition. And I can give you an example. I have a family right now. Dad passed away while he was alive. Every other year, they got together at the Outer Banks. Man's been dead 16 years. They still get together, and there's 30 of them now because the families have expanded. And that's a tradition that they do not and will not break. So
Cool.
things like that. That's what's going to help. And those three things, if those are laid out, then people understand what's going on. It should prevent resentment. It should have people help each other instead of fighting over what they think is theirs and how things should be done.
It goes a lot easier for sure in my experience when everybody's wishes are understood, the correct plans are in place, the right players are in place. Having lived through it personally, I know that it does a heck of a lot to make sure that things go much smoother. There's, and think about the situation. You're experiencing loss, probably a very dear loved one. And, you probably can't even think straight for a while. So to have it laid out for you and for those professionals to know their roles and to have you helping to guide it all along the way, I think is a blessing, to be sure. So anything else to talk about with the family meeting?
Well, there's just two things. And I've been talking and putting on seminars on two areas. Okay. The first one is an exercise type of program in which we help people identify what their principal values and beliefs are. Very important. And it's funny when you put a group of people together and you have them go through the exercise, the types of conversations that you hear in that room are just like mind blowing because they never gave it a thought.
I bet you, I was say, I bet you hear that constantly. I never really thought about this in this way.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But
the service providing, that's fantastic.
The other one that I've started using or having it's called Share Your Love. It's basically getting your house in order, and there's a guide that kind of tells you everything that should go into that family meeting. Now, if you don't want to have the family meeting, it's a blueprint. I would prefer to have the blueprint and the family meeting. And if I had a choice between the two, the family meeting is even more important than the blueprint, but at least things are spelled out. So those are two topics. And I'm going to be adding others as we go down the line. One of them that I'm really going to start focusing on. Okay, you lost a spouse. How are you reacting post spouse being gone? Because it alters a person's legacy in a different kind of way, and that's one I'm slowly putting together, and that's going to be one that in the future I want to share with people because there's a lot of people who don't understand that at all until after it happens, and I want to give them a sense of here's what you need to be prepared for, and that's also part of the legacy.
So maybe when you have that fully fleshed out, which I assume won't be long, knowing you, maybe we revisit and do another podcast on that.
Absolutely, and maybe at some point also, I may even have examples of actual people who have lived through it and and have them share their experiences, so that so people are more aware.
That would be powerful. That would be powerful indeed. All right, Michael. Any other last words of wisdom or thoughts on this? It was excellent information, and I'm glad we gave you the opportunity to share it. Anything else?
No, other than this is going to be more and more of my practice, and I think with you hear the same thing all the time. The baby boomers are getting older. There's going to be trillions and trillions of dollars being passed down. Well, don't you think it's time that we start focusing on that more so than yes, retirement's important. Getting you there is very important, but what are you going to do when you pass? So that's going to become more and more of a focus, and I hope to be a leader in that area going forward, so that I can help educate everyone as the importance of the legacy and carrying on your legacy.
Well, I in particular hope that you'll be there to help smoke all my cigars and drink all my bourbon when I pass, because I don't want any of it wasted. So you can
No
lead
worries,
that
Bill.
charge. What's that?
No worries. We can start on that this weekend if you want.
I'm heading to Florida. I'm heading to Florida later today. So
I didn't say you had to be there, Bill. Just leave the keys. All right.
the place is never locked. Anyway, enough of that. So, Michael, if an advisor or a potential client or anybody wanted to find out more about legacy planning, family meetings, what you do, how you do it, where would they find you? How would they go about contacting you?
Well, they can go to our website, clientfirstfinancial.com, and on there are several places to go to find out about our legacy and how we approach it. Also, they can email me. All that's on our website. That's the best way to contact us. We have some videos on there that talk about a lot of these subjects that we had just mentioned. It's constantly being updated, so that it's ever changing. So I want to make sure that the content stays fresh and to the forefront of what we're trying to do and accomplish.
The content is it's pretty vast, and it is regularly added to, and you can thank the great folks, the ladies at Amy's company. She doesn't own it, but she's part of it, Social T Marketing, for their help in helping to produce some of that. That's www.client1st financial, clientfirstfinancial.com. Michael J. Fischer, President and CEO. Michael, I want to thank you again. It's all, Bud, you're the best. And I love when we have our conversations on video or not, or offline. I hope you have a great rest of the day. I want to thank Brandon and Amy, our co-producers today, for producing this podcast. You can find us and our podcast page at www.whatsnext.coach. Whatsnext.coach. I want to thank everybody today. I want to thank people for tuning in. Be on the lookout for more podcasts at What's Next for Financial Advisors, the podcast. We're looking forward to bringing you more valuable content such as we did today. In the meantime, it's probably a good idea if you spend at least 1 minute every day thinking about what's next. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for stopping by. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.